I honestly didn't think I did anything wrong. It was just a harmless joke at my own wedding, marrying my ex as a prank instead of my real fiancé. Everyone would laugh, we'd all have a good story to tell, and life would go on. But now, standing at my kitchen counter with divorce papers in one hand and a lawyer's letter in the other, I realize my husband is taking this much more seriously than anyone expected. My name is Aurelia Vane, and 6 months ago, I thought I was the cleverest woman alive. I had it all figured out: a stable marriage to Elliot, a comfortable suburban life, and just enough excitement on the side to keep things interesting. What I didn't count on was how quickly everything could unravel when you push the wrong person too far. The local bistro was decorated exactly how I'd envisioned: fairy lights strung across exposed brick walls, mason jars filled with white roses, and that rustic chic vibe that screamed, Pinterest perfect. Our wedding reception was supposed to be intimate, just 60 of our closest friends and family. I'd spent months planning every detail, but the one thing I was most excited about wasn't in any wedding planner's guidebook. "Are you sure about this?" Simon whispered, adjusting his tie nervously. My ex-boyfriend looked handsome in his borrowed suit, his dark hair slicked back, and those green eyes that had always made my stomach flutter dancing with mischief. "It'll be hilarious," I assured him, touching up my lipstick in the bistro's tiny bathroom mirror. "Everyone knows we're friends. They'll think it's the funniest thing ever." The plan was simple. I'd walk down the aisle to Simon first, we'd do a mock ceremony with our friend Jake officiating, and then I'd surprise everyone by revealing Elliot as my real husband. Classic Aurelia, always keeping people on their toes, always the center of attention. I could hear the acoustic guitar starting up outside. My cue. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jake announced with a grin, "please welcome our beautiful bride, Aurelia." Before we dive deeper into the story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I pushed through the bathroom door, my vintage lace dress flowing behind me. The room erupted in confused murmurs as I walked straight to Simon, who was standing where the groom should be. Some people laughed nervously, others looked around for Elliot. "Dearly beloved," Jake began dramatically, "we are gathered here today to witness the union of Aurelia and Simon." The crowd's energy was electric. My mother, Clara, was practically cackling with delight from the front row. "Classic Aurelia," she called out, raising her champagne glass. But when I glanced over at Elliot, who was standing awkwardly by the bar in his actual wedding suit, my stomach dropped just a little. His face was stone cold, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitching. His father, Dylan, looked absolutely furious, while my younger sister, Grace, had her hand over her mouth in what looked more like horror than amusement. "Do you, Simon, take Aurelia to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Jake continued, barely containing his laughter. "I do," Simon said with a theatrical bow. "And do you, Aurelia, take Simon to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do," I giggled, playing up the moment. "Then by the power vested in me by absolutely no one, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Simon dipped me dramatically and planted a kiss on my lips, longer than I'd planned, but the crowd was eating it up. Well, most of the crowd. "Surprise," I announced, breaking away from Simon and gesturing toward Elliot. "Plot twist, I'm actually marrying this guy." I expected laughter. I expected applause. What I got was uncomfortable silence, broken only by a few forced chuckles, and my mother's continued giggling. Elliot walked over slowly, his movements controlled and deliberate. When he reached me, he didn't smile. He didn't play along. He simply said, "Are we doing the real ceremony now, or should I come back later?" "Oh, come on, Elle," I said, grabbing his arm. "Don't be such a stick in the mud. It was funny." "Hilarious," he replied flatly. The actual ceremony was awkward after that. Elliot went through the motions, said his vows, kissed me when prompted, but there was no warmth in it, no joy. When people came up to congratulate us during the reception, I kept having to explain the joke over and over. It was just a prank, I told our neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who looked thoroughly confused. Simon's my ex, but we're still friends. I thought it would be funny to fake marry him first. Oh, she said, glancing between me, Simon, and Elliot, who was sitting alone at our sweetheart table. How creative. Simon was loving every minute of it, working the room like he was the actual groom. He'd always been charming like that, a freelance photographer with an easy smile and the kind of confidence that made people gravitate toward him. It's why I'd started sleeping with him again 3 months ago. Your husband doesn't look very happy, Simon murmured in my ear as we danced to what should have been Elliot's song. He'll get over it, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I wasn't entirely sure. Elliot had left the reception early, claiming he had a headache. Our 8-year-old daughter Maya had gone with him, clinging to his hand and shooting me confused looks. That night, as I was finally taking off my wedding dress, my phone buzzed with a text from Elliot. We need to talk. Not great party, honey, or love you, wife. Just, we need to talk. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, Can't it wait until tomorrow? I'm exhausted. His response came immediately. No, it can't. I found Elliot in our kitchen at midnight, still wearing his wedding suit, but with his tie loosened and his sleeves rolled up. He was sitting at our breakfast bar with his laptop open, and when I walked in, he closed it immediately. Okay, what's this about? I asked, pouring myself a glass of wine from the bottle we'd been saving for our wedding night. If you're upset about the Simon thing, I already told you. It was just a joke. A joke, he repeated slowly. You fake married your ex-boyfriend at our wedding reception as a joke. Yes, exactly. God, Elle, you're acting like I actually cheated on you or something. The silence that followed was deafening. Elliot just stared at me, his brown eyes searching my face like he was looking for something he'd lost. How long? He asked quietly. How long what? How long have you been sleeping with him? My wine glass froze halfway to my lips. What are you talking about? Simon, how long have you been sleeping with Simon? I forced out a laugh, but it sounded hollow even to me. Are you insane? I'm not sleeping with Simon. We're friends. We've been friends since we broke up 5 years ago. Friends don't kiss like that. It was part of the act. Friends don't look at each other like that. You're being paranoid. Friends don't text each other at 2 a.m. That stopped me cold. Your phone was charging on my nightstand last week. It kept buzzing. I set down my wine glass, my mind racing. So you went through my phone? I didn't have to. The preview showed enough. That's a violation of my privacy, Elliot. And what you did tonight was a violation of our marriage. I could feel the conversation spinning out of control. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I was supposed to be the injured party here, the fun, spontaneous wife whose boring husband couldn't take a joke. You're overreacting, I said, using the calm, reasonable tone I'd perfected in my HR job. You're letting your insecurity turn a harmless prank into some kind of conspiracy theory. Show me your phone. Excuse me? If there's nothing going on, show me your phone, right now. Absolutely not. I'm not going to be treated like a criminal in my own home because you can't handle your wife having male friends. Elliot stood up slowly, closing his laptop and tucking it under his arm. I see. Where are you going? Guest room. Oh, come on, Elle. Don't be dramatic. It's our wedding night. He paused at the kitchen doorway. Is it? Because from where I was standing tonight, it looked like you already had your wedding night. With someone else. Over the next 2 weeks, Elliot grew increasingly distant. He started coming home late from his IT job, claiming he had projects to finish. He kept his phone locked and face down. He barely spoke to me except when Maya was around, and even then, it was just surface-level pleasantries. I tried to maintain normalcy, but it was getting harder. Especially when Simon kept texting me, wanting to relive our performance at the wedding. Your husband looked like he wanted to murder me, Simon wrote. Kind of hot, actually. When can I see you? I should have told him to back off. I should have focused on fixing things with Elliot. Instead, I found myself meeting Simon for lunch, then coffee, then afternoon photography sessions at his apartment. This is crazy, I told him one Thursday afternoon, lying in his unmade bed, while he scrolled through the photos he'd taken of me. I'm supposed to be on my honeymoon. Where was your husband planning to take you? Simon asked, not looking up from his camera. Nowhere. He cancelled it after the wedding. Said he needed to think about things. His loss, Simon murmured, leaning over to kiss my neck. Though I have to admit, I'm getting a little worried about him. He's been asking around about me. What do you mean? My buddy Jake said Elliot called him asking about our friendship. How long we've been hanging out, whether I've been to your house, that kind of thing. A chill ran down my spine. What did Jake tell him? The truth, that we've been close since you got back in touch a few months ago. I sat up abruptly. You told Jake about us. Relax, I didn't give him details. But people aren't stupid, Aurelia. The way we acted at your wedding, the way you've been looking at me, it's not exactly subtle. When I got home that evening, I found Elliot in Maya's room, helping her with homework. They both looked up when I appeared in the doorway, and I was struck by how similar their expressions were. Wary, guarded. How was work? Elliot asked politely. Fine, long day. You know how it is. Actually, I don't. I called your office around 3. They said you'd left early for a dental appointment. My mouth went dry. Oh, right. I forgot to mention that. Just a cleaning. Funny. You don't usually forget to complain about the dentist. Maya looked between us, her 8-year-old intuition picking up on the tension. Are you guys mad at each other? Of course not, sweetheart, I said quickly, ruffling her dark hair. Daddy's just tired from work. Actually, Elliot said, standing up, I think we should talk. Maya, why don't you finish your math problems? We'll be downstairs. In the living room, Elliot sat across from me instead of beside me on the couch. The distance felt intentional. I know, he said simply. Know what? About Simon. About the affair. About all of it. Elliot, I don't know what you think you know, but I hired a private investigator. The words hit me like a physical blow. You what? After the wedding, after the lies, after watching you gaslight me for 2 weeks. His voice was calm, almost conversational. Did you know Simon's neighbor has a security camera that faces the street? Did you know your rideshare app keeps records of every trip you take? I felt like the room was spinning. You had me followed. I had the truth documented. There's a difference. This is insane, Elliot. You're acting like some kind of psychopath. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, I'm acting like a husband who's tired of being made a fool of. I tried a different approach, softening my voice. Look, maybe I made some mistakes. Maybe the wedding thing was inappropriate, but we can work through this. We can go to counseling. Can we work through 3 months of adultery? Can we work through you humiliating me in front of our friends and family? Can we work through you lying to my face every single day? It wasn't like that. What was it like, Aurelia? Explain it to me. Make me understand how any of this was okay. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came, because the truth was, I couldn't explain it. I couldn't make him understand because deep down, I knew he was right. I want you to leave, I said instead. If you can't trust me, if you're going to treat me like a criminal, then maybe you should be the one to go. Elliot nodded slowly, like he'd been expecting this. I'll pack a bag tonight, but Aurelia, this isn't over, not even close. That night, I lay alone in our king-size bed, listening to Elliot moving around in the guest room. I could hear drawers opening and closing, the sound of his suitcase zipper. When I woke up the next morning, he was gone. The whispers started immediately. In the break room at work, conversations would stop when I walked in. Co-workers who used to chat with me about weekend plans suddenly became very interested in their coffee cups when I approached. Is everything okay at home? My boss, Margaret, asked during our weekly one-on-one meeting. You seem distracted lately. Everything's fine, I lied, straightening the papers on her desk. Just adjusting to married life, you know. Right, about that. I heard about your wedding from Linda in accounting. She said it was unique. Linda in accounting. Of course. She'd been at the reception, had probably told half the office about my joke by now. It was just a fun prank, I said, forcing a smile. You know me, always trying to keep things interesting. Mm-hmm. And your husband, how did he take it? He thought it was hilarious. The lie came so easily, I almost believed it myself. Almost. By lunchtime, I was desperate to talk to someone who would understand. I called Simon from my car in the parking lot. I can't see you anymore, I said as soon as he answered. Well, hello to you too, beautiful. I'm serious, Simon. Elliot knows. He hired a private investigator. There was a long pause. Shit. How much does he know? Everything, apparently. He's moved out. Okay, so what's the problem? Now we can be together without all the sneaking around. The problem is I'm married. The problem is I have a daughter. The problem is my entire life is falling apart. Aurelia, calm down. You're being dramatic. Don't tell me I'm being dramatic. Do you have any idea what this could do to my career, my reputation? Your reputation was never exactly pristine, sweetheart. Remember, I knew you when you were cheating on your college boyfriend with me. The casual cruelty in his voice stopped me cold. What did you just say? Nothing. Look, I'm busy right now. Can we talk about this later? Simon. But he'd already hung up. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. Simon, who had been so attentive, so charming, so eager to spend time with me, had just dismissed me like I was an annoying client. The man I'd risked my marriage for couldn't even be bothered to comfort me when that marriage imploded. That evening, my mother called with an invitation I couldn't refuse. Family dinner tomorrow night, Clara announced. I'm making your favorite, lamb with rosemary. And I've invited Simon. Mum, I don't think that's a good idea. Nonsense. The poor boy has been caught up in all this drama with Elliot's jealousy. The least we can do is show him he's still welcome in our family. It's not that simple. Of course it is, darling. Elliot is being ridiculous and everyone knows it. Dylan called me yesterday, you know, absolutely furious. Can you believe he's taking Elliot's side in all this? I could, actually. Dylan Harrow had never particularly liked me, and I'd always suspected he thought his son could do better. Now he had ammunition. What exactly did Dylan say? Oh, the usual nonsense. That you humiliated his precious son, that you're tearing the family apart. I told him that if Elliot can't handle his wife having a sense of humor, that's his problem. And what did he say to that? Something very rude that I won't repeat. The point is, we're not going to let them make you feel guilty for being yourself. Simon will be there at 6. The next evening, I arrived at my childhood home to find Simon's car already in the driveway. Through the window, I could see him at the dining room table, charming my mother with what looked like photos on his phone. There she is, Clara called out when I walked in. Simon was just showing me some of his latest work. He's so talented. Simon stood to kiss my cheek, and I caught a whiff of expensive cologne. He was dressed more formally than usual. Button-down shirt, dress pants, like he was trying to make a good impression. Where's Grace? I asked, noticing my sister's absence. Oh, she couldn't make it. Something about studying for exams. Clara waved dismissively. And obviously, Elliot isn't coming. Did you invite him? I most certainly did not. After the way he's been treating you, absolutely not. During dinner, Simon was his usual charming self, telling stories about his photography clients and making my mother laugh. But I kept thinking about our phone conversation, about how quickly he'd dismissed my concerns. So, Simon, I said during a lull in conversation, have you heard from Elliot at all? Since the wedding? Simon's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Why would I hear from Elliot? I just thought maybe he'd reached out, to talk. About what? About us. About what's been going on. Clara looked between us, her expression sharpening. What's been going on? Besides Elliot's jealousy, I mean. Simon set down his fork and looked directly at me. I think that's a conversation for another time. But I was tired of secrets, tired of pretending, tired of protecting everyone else's feelings while my world crumbled around me. Simon and I have been seeing each other, I said, for the past few months. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's face went through several expressions: confusion, understanding, and then something like calculation. Well, she said finally, I suppose that explains Elliot's behavior. Mom, not that I'm judging, darling. These things happen. Marriage is complicated. Simon was staring at me like I'd lost my mind. Aurelia, what are you doing? I'm telling the truth, for once. The truth is going to complicate things. Things are already complicated. My phone buzzed with an email notification. The sender was listed as Harrow Legal Services, and the subject line read, Notice of Representation. With shaking hands, I opened the message. Mrs. Vane Harrow, this letter serves as formal notice that our firm now represents Mr. Elliot Harrow in all matters related to the dissolution of your marriage and associated custody proceedings. All future communication should be directed to our office. Sincerely, Patterson, Mills and Associates. What is it, darling? My mother asked, noticing my expression. I showed her the email. She read it twice, her face growing paler with each word. Custody proceedings, she whispered. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about divorce. Elliot wasn't just leaving me, he was fighting for Maya. Simon reached for my hand across the table, but I pulled away. I need to go home. Aurelia, wait. No, this is real. This is actually happening. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing through possibilities. Elliot was serious, more serious than I'd ever seen him. The quiet, methodical man I'd married was preparing for war, and I was just beginning to understand that I might not win. When I pulled into our driveway, I noticed something different. The house looked the same from the outside, but Elliot's car wasn't there. It hadn't been there for days. Inside, the silence was overwhelming. Maya was at Elliot's temporary apartment for the weekend, something we'd arranged through terse text messages. The house that had always felt like home now felt like a museum of my failed marriage. I poured myself a large glass of wine and sat at the kitchen island, staring at the email on my phone. Patterson, Mills and Associates. I'd heard of them. They were expensive, thorough, and they didn't take cases they weren't confident they could win. My phone rang. It was Grace. I heard about dinner, she said without preamble. Mom told you. She called me crying, said you'd confessed to having an affair and that Elliot's lawyer is going after custody. It's not that simple. Isn't it? Aurelia, what were you thinking? I was thinking I deserved to be happy. At the expense of everyone else? At the expense of Maya? The mention of my daughter hit like a physical blow. Don't you dare make this about Maya. Everything is about Maya. She's 8 years old, Aurelia. She doesn't understand why Daddy moved out. She doesn't understand why Mommy married Uncle Simon at the wedding. She's confused and scared, and you're too wrapped up in your own drama to see it. I'm trying to hold my family together. No, you're not. You destroyed your family. And now you're trying to figure out how to avoid the consequences. After Grace hung up, I sat alone in my kitchen, surrounded by the detritus of my choices. Wedding photos still sat on the counter, waiting to be put in albums. In one of them, I was kissing Simon while Elliot watched from the background, his face a mask of controlled humiliation. For the first time since this all began, I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. I spent the weekend in a panic, calling lawyer after lawyer, only to be told they were either booked solid or had a conflict of interest. which I suspected meant Elliot had already consulted with them. It's an old trick, one I'd heard about in HR training. Consult with all the good divorce attorneys in town so your spouse can't hire them. Finally, on Monday morning, I found someone willing to take my case. Janet Morrison was young, hungry, and significantly cheaper than the firms that had turned me down. Her office was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. "So," she said, reviewing the notes I'd given her, "your husband is claiming adultery and public humiliation as grounds for divorce." It wasn't public humiliation, it was a joke. A joke where you fake married your lover in front of 60 wedding guests. He wasn't my lover then. Not technically. Janet raised an eyebrow. When did the physical relationship begin? 3 months before the wedding. So he was your lover then? I shifted uncomfortably in the plastic chair. The point is, it was meant to be funny. Elliot is just being vindictive because he can't handle that I have male friends. Mrs. Harrow, I need you to understand something. In a custody battle, perception is reality, and the perception here is that you publicly humiliated your husband by fake marrying your affair partner at your actual wedding. So what do? We focus on what we can control. Your relationship with your daughter, your stability as a parent, your ability to provide a good home. But I have to ask, is the affair over? I hesitated. It's complicated. Uncomplicate it. If you want any chance of joint custody, you need to end things with this Simon person immediately and publicly. That afternoon, I drove to Simon's apartment. I'd been there so many times over the past few months, but now the familiar route felt like a death march. The building was a converted warehouse in the arts district, the kind of place that looked bohemian and creative, but cost twice what my suburban mortgage payment did. Simon answered the door in paint-splattered jeans and no shirt, a paintbrush still in his hand. "Well, this is a surprise," he said, stepping aside to let me in. "I thought you were going dark after the family dinner incident. We need to talk." "Okay, but make it quick. I have a client coming by in an hour." His apartment was exactly as I remembered. Exposed brick walls covered with his photography, expensive camera equipment scattered across every surface, and that unmade bed where I'd spent so many stolen afternoons. "It's over," I said. "Whatever this was between us, it's over." Simon set down his paintbrush and turned to face me fully. Because of the lawyer thing. Because of everything. My marriage, my daughter, my career. It's all falling apart. "And you're blaming me?" "I'm not blaming anyone. I'm trying to salvage what I can." Simon walked over to his kitchen island and picked up his phone. "You might want to see this before you make any dramatic declarations." He showed me the screen. It was a text conversation between him and someone named Jake. "Jake, Elliot's been asking questions about you and Aurelia." Simon: "What kind of questions?" Jake: "Timeline stuff. When you started hanging out again, whether you've been to her house. He's building a case, man." Simon: "Let him. I've got insurance." "Insurance?" I asked. Simon's smile was predatory. "Photos, videos, messages, you were very uninhibited." "You recorded us," I whispered. "I'm a photographer. I document beautiful things." "Delete them." He shrugged. "If your husband wants to fight dirty, I can too. Those files would ruin your custody case." The truth hit me. Simon hadn't loved me. He'd collected me, piece by piece, as leverage. "You're blackmailing me." "I'm protecting myself." I fled his apartment shaking, realizing I'd been nothing more than a story for him to exploit. When I got home, Elliot's car was in the driveway. For a fleeting moment, I thought he wanted to reconcile. But inside, he was boxing up his office, calm and distant. "I went to see a lawyer," he said flatly. "Elliot, this doesn't have to be a war. Can we work out adultery, lies, humiliation?" Maya looked up from her tablet. "What's adultery?" He exhaled. "Something we'll explain when you're older." Then he handed me a manila folder. Inside were printouts, texts, photos, receipts, every lie catalogued. "Our shared cloud," he said. "You forgot I set it up." My stomach twisted as I saw everything. My messages, my photos, my mistakes. "This is the last time we speak privately. All contact goes through lawyers." He turned to Maya. "Come on, sweetheart, ice cream." After they left, I sat surrounded by proof of my own downfall. When I called my lawyer, her voice was grim. "They have everything. Prepare for limited custody and an expensive divorce." I hung up, poured a glass of wine, and stared at a photo Simon had taken of me, carefree and smiling, wearing his shirt. I'd thought I was free then, but now I understood. I'd only been digging my own grave. The court summons arrived on a grey Tuesday morning, tucked inside a thick envelope the process server handed over with an apologetic look. Maya sat at the kitchen counter, spooning cereal into her mouth, milk running down her chin. "What's that, Mummy?" she asked. "Just boring grown-up stuff, sweetheart. Finish your breakfast." But it wasn't boring. It was a petition for dissolution of marriage, sole physical custody for Elliot, and a motion to freeze our joint accounts. My husband wasn't just leaving me. He was erasing me. I called my lawyer, Janet. "He's moving fast," she said after reading the documents. "If he can prove you used marital funds for the affair, he can freeze your accounts." Then her voice hardened. "Aurelia, be honest. Did Simon record you?" My stomach dropped. "Maybe. Because Elliot's lawyer just requested all digital evidence. If Simon's hostile, your chances at custody are slim." That afternoon, I picked up Maya from school and drove her to Elliot's new apartment. She ran straight into his arms, beaming. He'd always been the steady one. I tried to talk, but he cut me off. "All communication goes through lawyers now." "She's confused," I said. "She doesn't understand." "She understands more than you think," he replied evenly. "She knows Mommy hurt Daddy. She's going to need therapy. Already arranged." It shouldn't have surprised me. Elliot always planned ahead. Then Maya came back into the room and said the one thing that made him go cold. "Is it because of Uncle Simon?" The silence that followed was suffocating. Elliot's eyes darkened. "You brought our daughter around him?" "It wasn't intentional." "If you ever do it again," he said quietly, "you'll never see her unsupervised." That night, desperation drove me to Simon's apartment. He opened the door in pajamas, smirking. "I need you to delete everything. Photos, videos, all of it." He leaned against the frame. "We've been over this. My daughter's involved now. Elliot's filing for custody." "Not my problem," he said. "It will be when your name's in the court filings. You'll look like a predator." He laughed softly. "You'll look worse. Married woman, public humiliation, betrayal. I'm the guy who had a fling. You're the story." That's when I knew I'd been nothing more than entertainment to him. "You're a monster," I said. "I'm just not pretending to be innocent," he replied, and shut the door. When I got home, the voicemail light blinked. Grace's voice trembled through the receiver. "Elliot filed for emergency custody. The hearing's next week." My hands shook. "On what grounds?" "Endangering Maya, dinner at Mom's. Apparently Simon was there." Of course. One careless evening, one dinner too many, and now it was evidence. "Grace, please, will you testify for me?" Silence then. "I can't. I won't. You've hurt too many people already." The line went dead. I sat in the quiet house, surrounded by ghosts of the life I'd destroyed. My husband was gone. My lover had turned predator. My sister wanted nothing to do with me. And in 1 week, a judge would decide whether I'd be allowed to tuck my daughter into bed again, or just wave from across a visitation room. 1 week to prove I wasn't the villain everyone believed I was. 1 week to save the last piece of my world before it disappeared entirely. The courthouse looked more like a library than a place where lives unraveled. I arrived early, clutching my thin folder of evidence, school records, photos with Maya, character references that suddenly felt meaningless. Elliot came in looking composed, flanked by his lawyer and his father carrying boxes of documents. My attorney, Janet, whispered, "They're going to portray you as an unfit mother who chose her affair over her child." Judge Morrison presided. Silver hair, sharp eyes, no patience for excuses. Elliot's lawyer dissected my life piece by piece. The affair, the misuse of funds, the humiliation at the wedding, the exposure of my daughter to my lover. Each revelation felt like a nail sealing my fate. When the judge asked for my response, I stood. Everything they said is true. I made terrible choices as a wife, but not as a mother. Maya is loved, safe, and happy. Taking her away from me won't fix what I've done. It'll only hurt her. The judge's expression didn't soften. "Mrs. Harrow, your judgment has endangered your child's emotional well-being. Temporary sole custody to Mr. Harrow. Supervised visitation for you, 2 hours each Sunday." The gavel fell like a death sentence. Outside, I sat in my car, staring at the courthouse doors. 2 hours a week. My daughter would become a visitor in my life. Elliot hadn't beaten me through spite. He'd beaten me with the truth. At home, the divorce papers waited on the counter beside a note from his lawyer outlining the settlement. I poured a glass of wine and listened to the sound of neighborhood children playing outside. Maya's laughter used to be part of that symphony. Now it belonged to someone else's world. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.